It wasn't always there. I didn't even know anything about it, to be honest. I mean, I've been writing things for donkey's years, songs, poems, little. I've written a couple of books before, but I never published anything as such. And I moved into the Swansea Valley in 2002. And the first house that I lived in Panteg was an old farmhouse, which back in 1850 had been lived in by this fellow called Morgan Lewis and his wife Rachel, he was an under gamekeeper for R.D. Goff, who, as you know, he owned all the valley in those days. And then I'd been in the farmhouse for about a couple of years, and then I moved up, as the crow flies, about 200 yards up the mountain to a very isolated cottage which was about 350 years old. And I went up there because it was peaceful. It was isolated. It was 7 acres of woodland and a couple of nice little paddocks and things, and the cottage was very old. But from the very first minute I went there, before I moved in, I was aware of the ghostly hauntings that were going on. Because the very first day when I was there, I saw a shadow of a stooped gentleman walking across past the stable door, and I said to Andy, who owned the cottage, I said, "I've just seen it." "Oh," he says, "lots of that around here." He says, "I've had tenants here," he said, "they've not stayed more than a week before they've been off down the hill." Well, it didn't bother me at all. And for about the first 2 years, there was all sorts of things going on I'd come down in the morning, furniture had been moved around. Never anything malevolent, nothing. I'm convinced it was Di Davies' mother, actually, because I'd come down, things would be tidied up, and I had friends working in, Cos Mike, his lady friend Pip. She was in the kitchen one day, and somebody dug her in the back when she was washing up and told them to stop what she was doing because that was her job. So there was lots of things going on. I started to intuit stuff as well, and I had a very strong presence of this little fella all the time, and also this lady with long red hair. And then one night I was sat scribbling, and I started to write this song. And I didn't know where the hell it was coming from, actually, and this was the original version of the Ballad of Penny Graig, anyway. And so I wrote that, and then but I couldn't find the last line for the song. And there was another situation when another song in the series was Rachel's Lament, which is her story. And I'm pretty certain Rachel gave me those lyrics. I'm convinced she did, because I don't know where else they could possibly have come from. But what is very interesting about all of this is that despite all the weird and wonderful goings on that there was, and the experiences that I had and the people had, what did happen over a very short period of time, really, was this story started to unfurl. And excuse me. And I didn't know what I was feeling had actually happened. I didn't know. I just thought I was, having a mad half hour, as you do. But in actual fact, if where the cottage was, it's not there anymore now, sadly, because it came down into 2012 landslip. Sadly. So it's not there anymore. But it had stood there for 350 years, and directly below it, as I say, was Morgan Lewis's old haunts, and literally almost like a pyramid in the graveyard is Morgan Lewis's headstone, which says, "Here lies the body of Morgan Lewis, whose life was taken by a stone thrown by the hand of David Davies." Because that's what happened, essentially. Morgan Lewis was a horrible, nasty bully of a man. Nobody really liked him very much. He was well known for not keeping his word. He was well known for being quick with his fists. And Di, who was a little fella who worked in the ironworks during the day with his two big brothers, was a poacher, and everybody loves a poacher. And Di was cutchy, wasn't he? He was only 5'7". And he did a bit of a deal with Morgan, and Morgan let him down very badly, and Di wasn't prepared to put up with it. He wasn't prepared to be bullied like everybody else was. And on the 25th of February, after having lots and lots of weird experiences that he'd had with Morgan, he got quite drunk, and on three separate occasions on that day was witnessed by loads of people to basically get battered by Morgan. Every time he went up to him, Morgan more or less picked him up off the ground and just threw him away. But finally, in the evening, Di had gone into the Miner's Arms, and Morgan had literally given him another beating. And then a little later on, when when Morgan came out of the pub, Di was waiting for him at the bottom of the hill, and a stone the size of a pear soap is about the thing I can think of, right? He picked it up out of the stream, ran up the hill, took a big mad jump at Morgan, and hit him right in the centre of the forehead. Didn't hurt him, apparently. At the time, Morgan just sort of brushed him to one side and went home. But by the next morning, he went into a coma, and by the Monday, he was dead. So Di was arrested on the Monday evening and charged with manslaughter. Initially, they thought it would be murder, but the coroner decided it was manslaughter. And because of the fact that Di had consumption, he wasn't transported, which he would have been, and he only got 3 months hard labour. And he died 2 years later as well from consumption. But my heart in the whole story went out to Morgan's wife, Rachel, because they had 4 children. They lived in a tied cottage, and because of his arrogance and his bullying and his selfishness, she ended up homeless in the workhouse, and the children were off with relatives. And it was the biggest scandal ever to hit the valley. And I found myself living in both of the houses without any knowledge whatsoever. And so I did a bit of research as well, obviously, because I thought, all right, it's time to put this together properly, put it to bed properly, and I ended up writing 4 songs about it, and the book now, and I've finished a stage play as well now too. I mean, it was interesting because it was almost, when I wrote the songs, it was nowhere near finished, you know. I mean, there was a very interesting thing that happened, you see, because the Ballad of Penny Graig, which is the really long, fighty, sort of, you know, really raunchy, jumping about folk song sort of thing, I couldn't find, I mean, it was 12 months before I found the last line to finish the song. The song had been finished. I couldn't find the last line. And then one morning, and this is very interesting, because one morning, very early in the morning, really early, I had my loop pedal playing, and I was singing a song, sitting there for about that 700th time. I was approaching the end of the song. And suddenly Morgan appeared in front of me as sort of silhouette, and Di to the left of me. And I'd seen them both before, but I'd never seen Morgan smiling. This is the first time I've ever seen a smile on his ghostly face. And then the line came to me, now they're both angels in flight. And I sang it. And as I sang the line, there was a kind of atmospheric wiggliness, is about the only way I can describe it, you know. And they were gone. And the house was clean after that, and didn't have any more ghosts, and I was really sick because my friends had gone. No, but seriously, everything went. The little ghoul at the bottom of the hill, he hadn't gone, mind, but Morgan and Di had gone, and it was interesting because Stu Loosemore did a programme ages and ages with me ago about it, a bit like, you know, Down Your Way used to be on Radio 4. And right at the end, Stuart said to me, it sounds like a musical exorcism. And I said, yeah, but I wonder who exorcised who, because when I first went up there, I was in a dark place, you know, and the experiences that I had there helped me come out of that dark place. Didn't just help me come out of it, but gave me a #1 in the folk charts as well, you know, and joint first at the Doncaster songwriting competition and stuff like that. You know, suddenly I'd written a piece of work that really was a damn good folk song, best song I've ever written, I think. But I would never have done it if I hadn't lived in Penny Graig. So As to how it happened, I honestly don't know, Joe. It just did. And then it didn't, because it was kind of like over then, you know.
So did you write the book after they'd gone?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I didn't start writing the book. I mean, it was originally, first edition was published in back in 2015. Excuse me. And I didn't start writing it until, let me see now, when Penny Graig came down, when the house came down, that's when I started writing it. Because on the 22nd of December 2012, when the rest of the world was supposed to end, allegedly, and it didn't because we're still here, Penny Graig did come down. There was a massive landslip that nearly took the chapel out, 1 o'clock in the morning on the 22nd. And a big crack appeared behind Penny Graig cottage, and it had to be demolished not long after that. So it did end, really, for up there. But after that, I wrote the book. Yeah, I wrote the book after that. That must have been 2013. I started to write it.
Well, 8 o'clock in the Miner's Arms on a cold and wintry night. Morgan Lewis, a gamekeeper, not a man you'd want to fight. Well, 39 and a wife and 5, tight cottage on a hill, waiting for thy Davies who he would surely kill. Well, Di, he was a small man, 5 feet 7 or more. From the age of 9 in the ironworks, he trod the factory floor.